6 on your Tuesday afternoon. Did you see this latest story a couple days ago? The headline is 16 billion, with a B, 16 billion passwords may have been stolen. Here's how to protect yourself. And then the piece goes on to say that a cybersecurity news outlet uncovered a leak of 16 billion passwords that may have granted access to Apple, Google, Facebook accounts, and many, many more. My thing about this is every single time these stories happen, the expert in the piece says people need to learn to change their passwords. And guess what? You and I aren't doing that. So we need to figure out when life is going to come at us and we don't have passwords anymore. Is that ever going to be a possibility? Here to talk the cybersecurity for the first time, actually. Welcome to the show, Hank the Hacker. Now, that is a name. Hank the Hacker, a.k.a. Hank Fordham. He is the ethical hacker at X10 Technologies. Welcome to the show, Hank the Hacker.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
All right. Every time there's a story where someone gets hacked, the expert in the piece says, people, change your passwords. And guess what we don't do, Hank the Hacker? We don't change our passwords. So is it just that... Okay, I'll use myself as an example. Am I just stupid and I just am never going to do this? What do we need to do here?
You know, I wouldn't say anything. It's not about stupidity or anything. It's just that, the element that's never going to go away, that human element. And the problem is that, it doesn't matter how often. There's always the recommendation that, change your password often, don't reuse passwords, but it doesn't matter how long or complex your password is. If an attacker compromises a database that stores it, then they have it. So this is why password hygiene and management, techniques or practices are something that you constantly hear from experts and something that's considered so essential. And it's also kind of why it's so critical not to use those same passwords for multiple accounts or websites, because if an attacker, and it's usually not if, but if that attacker steals that password from one database or website, and that individual has reused it elsewhere, then the attacker has access to those accounts as well. So those recent data breaches and the information leaks in general, I think just serve as a reminder of just how easy it is for this sensitive data to be unintentionally exposed online. And as in my experience as an ethical hacker, it's really just the tip of the iceberg in regards to how much exposed credentials, including passwords, are actually sitting out there online and exposed currently.
I am awful at passwords. I do one of two things. I either use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which I'm not giving away passwords, like that's just what people use, or I make it so ridiculously complex, then I write it down in a sticky and Sharpie, and then I'm like, what is this a password to? And it will be like pizza714_68 I love tacos, Sarah Crosby 12 __! Period. And my husband will say, how are you ever going to remember that? I'm like, I don't know, but it's pretty strong. I don't know what it's for, but that is my password. So I have the little thing on my phone where you log your passwords, and I know that this is the key to our cybersecurity. It just always seems like, for me, when you have a million things to do in the day, it ends up being my last thing on my list. And as an ethical hacker, you're probably like, this woman's killing me right now. But I think there are other people like me who we don't change them enough because it's one extra thing to do in our crazy days.
It's honestly, I think that's one of the benefits to kind of that passwordless world that we all envision, or a true passwordless technology where, it almost becomes easier to sign into services because you're kind of relying on a key being bound to a device paired with biometrics like your face, something you have, or are like your fingerprints, which kind of makes it easier to manage that and kind of removes the need for these password managers. And it's, again, with no matter how strong you make these passwords, or even if you have a really complex or unique password patterns, it's kind of a matter of when and not if. And that's one of the reasons that I always encourage companies to do what we call a pen test, where, as an ethical hacker, we go in at X10 Technologies and we have real hackers look at a company to ensure that they don't have any exposed information or vulnerabilities. And we also offer a free dark web scan so that if you are a company interested in seeing what information is on the dark web, like employees' passwords, then you can contact us as well for one of those.
Okay, so 2 questions. One, is it ever going to be in a time in our life when us putting our passwords in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, goes the way of the old phone book? And we will say, remember when we had passwords? Is that day actually going to come at some point where our phone just understands it's in the hands of Sarah Crosby, or my computer can look into my retina and passwords will be gone? Is that ever future life for us?
I think that we're starting to approach that. When you look at, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, they kind of joined forces to implement like a joint plan that standardizes the idea of true passwordless authentication. So they're getting ready, and in fact, a lot of platforms have already implemented a form of what passwordless standards might look like, called the FIDO Alliance. So you can even pair a key with your mobile phone or your PC right now, where the public key or the public random set of letters and numbers is sent to the website, like Facebook, and it gets stored there, and the private key is a secret, and it remains encrypted and stored on only your device. So the nice thing about this is that if you use a smartphone, the private key is also securely synchronized in the cloud. So once a passkey has been set up, the next time that you visit that website or app, you just have to tell it that you want to log in. And the service sends your device a so-called challenge, which I guess is like a task that can only be solved with the help of that private key that you have on your device. And we all think, like, well, what if someone gets my device? But there's kind of added factors of authentication on top of this in the form of biometrics, like a fingerprint or a face scan or something like that. And, well, it doesn't make it fully impossible. I hate to ever say we're 100% secure or we're unhackable. It definitely puts that user at the advantage in the case they ever do get exposed or targeted by a malicious hacker.
And you saying at X10 Technologies that you can look into companies' websites and even what's on the dark web. Are you usually more impressed that companies have gone above and beyond and have so much security and people's passwords and private information is safe? Or does Hank the hacker usually fall off his chair and think, what is happening here?
I would say it's a bit of a hedonic treadmill, and it depends on the industry. So you could have really good security in some cases, whereas other industries are targeted a little bit more, or they just have an easier exposure rate. So just statistically speaking, from my experience, there's a 71% chance that any one person is exposed on the dark web in one way or another.
There's a 71% chance I'm on the dark web?
Yeah. It's a scary fact, but the nice kind of thing behind that, or the silver lining, is that there's steps that we can do, even if we're just, the normal user, the average Joe, that kind of put us in the advantage. Things like multi-factor authentication, or using that kind of form of passkey or passwordless security that Microsoft, Google, and Apple have started to try and create.
This is like when you drive up to a ride checkpoint and all you've had all day is Diet Coke and you still feel nervous just because you're driving up to it. You saying there's a 71% chance there's something about me on the dark web makes me feel incredibly nervous, but then I'm like, wait, I'm the most mom regular person there is. There's nothing salacious out there. They can probably just see my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 passwords, and you would be thinking, oh, this woman needs to change her passwords. We have a lot more to chat about in future discussions with you. That is Hank Fordham, a.k.a. Hank the Hacker, on One Day Yes, not today and not tomorrow, but there could be a life without passwords in our future, from X10 Technologies. Thank you so much for joining the show this afternoon, Hank.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
As a business,